Hey vinyl community, it's Mazzy. The Jazz Shit Boys. Now, I'm stealing that because someone commented on our first video. I got a guest, Brooks, here from San Francisco. Brooks is in Seattle right now, hanging out with me. You gotta watch the first video, Jazz Shit video, to know what this is all about. But this is a very special episode because we're talking about sort of audiophile versions, including the Music Minus Jazz Shit Boy specials. We're gonna play, this is Sonny Clark in the background while we do this. And we're gonna do Music Matters Jazz, Tone Poet, and BN80. I'm going in the future here. And Brooks is gonna talk about music because he's the expert about jazz stuff. And real quickly, Music Matters Jazz is an audiophile label. They run from about $50 to $75 a piece. Some are $45, most of mine are $33. When they go out of print, they get very expensive. People get pissed off. They're overpriced. On the resale market, they're expensive. Bluenote now has Joe Harley, one of the partners in Music Matters Jazz, is doing the Tone Poet series. His nickname actually is Tone Poet, and I forgot which jazz artist named him that. But we'll see that. And then Don Was, who hired him to take care of the Tone Poet series, also has the Bluenote 80s series, because they fucked up the 75 series. The 80s are all analog, like the Tone Poet and the Music Matters. Almost all of them, I think, are mastered by Kevin Gray, and they're beautiful. Tone Poet has the better high-end glossy covers like the Music Matters Jazz. Take notes, there's a test after this, and if you don't remember, fuck it, this is Jazz Shit Boys. And again, we stole a name from, and I forgot now who posted that, but you'll tell me, and I'll look later and I won't know. I'm shaking it up a little bit here with a Gibson. And if you don't know, a Gibson is basically a martini with an onion instead of an olive. You order it as a Gibson. And again, as I said, if you know and if you paid attention, martinis are only gin. Otherwise, you have to call it a vodka martini. And if you drink a vodka martini, you're an amateur. Okay, this is Brooks from San Francisco.
Good evening. Hello.
He's my jazz expert. Knows way more than I do. So he's going to pull records and we're going to talk about him.
Yeah.
Any way you want to go, whatever order you want to go.
Okay. You know what? I'm looking through what Norman has here, and just to get off to a start here, we'll start with somebody that everybody knows, Wayne Shorter. And we've got several albums here. I'm not sure which ones are Tone Poets and which are Music Masters. Norman will let you know about that.
Mazzy.
Mazzy will let you know about that. But let's start with Wayne. Wayne Shorter's, got a big name for himself in Weather Report. But before that, he was actually, in my opinion, a much better player, or more interesting overall in the 60s and the late 50s. As a solo artist and playing with lots of other people, from Lee Morgan to a stint several years with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. So, and then of course Wayne's gone on to other things.
And wasn't he part of the second great quartet with
Miles Davis? Yes.
And Tony Williams,
Ron Carter,
Herbie Hancock.
Yes, right. So there's all those things.
I know a little bit about jazz shit.
Yeah, he's got quite a pedigree. Fortunately, he's still with us.
Where?
Yeah, not here.
Okay.
But he is around. He released an album just this year. It was multi-disc with a comic book that sort of went along with one of the discs that was like a concept album, and there was a live disc and an orchestral disc. And anyway, I haven't heard it, but it was quite an ambitious project.
Let's see some records now.
Been busy. So since we're doing these Music Masters Tone Poet things, we're strictly Bluenote, which nothing wrong with that. So we got a couple of we got a few Art Blakey albums here that Wayne is on, and of course everything, and they were all pretty much Let's see, these are all with Lee Morgan on trumpet. Well, two of them are. Art Blakey, Night in Tunisia, and Indestructible. Wayne and Lee were dynamic together. They sounded great. The tone of their instruments played off each other amazingly good, and just about everything they did together was great. In fact, Bluenote, or Mosaic, as you're probably familiar with, released an album strictly of 1 year of recording Art Blakey with Lee Morgan and Wayne Shorter together.
Which one was that?
Which what?
What was the 1 year?
The Mosaic?
Oh, Mosaic, you mean?
Yeah, Mosaic released the 1 year, and there's like, several albums, at least half a dozen or more albums.
Tell them a little bit, even though we're not showing any, tell the fine people about Mosaic.
Mosaic. Mosaic Records is still going, but most of their heyday was probably in the 90s and the early 2000s. They did box sets, both CDs and vinyl, although a little bit more on the CD side, but they were Michael Kuskuna, who has been involved with Bluenote for decades, runs the company and has licensing for all sorts of Bluenote stuff. So quite a few of the Mosaic sets are like complete Bluenote sessions of whoever. There's this Art Blakey one that's just complete of 1 year. There's you name it, just about all the main Bluenote artists. There's like some sort of a collection, either based on the year it was recorded, or a configuration of the band, or various things. So
Michael Kuskuna.
easy for you to say.
I can't even say that. I can trip over my lips, Mazzy. Michael Kuskuna, a number of years ago, purchased from Francis Wolf's wife, the estate, his archive. Now, Francis Wolf was one of the main partner in Bluenote, and photographed almost all the sessions, and did most, like probably 90% of the covers you see here are Francis Wolf photographs. The Mosaic records use his stuff extensively, as does the Music Matters Jazz, that if they have a session, they use from the session in the gatefold, as does Tone Poet. So.
Yeah, one other thing about the Mosaic boxes is they did not use the covers, and for the most part,
They're all black and white, but even the
yeah,
packaging.
well, the packaging, yeah, everything's black and white, right? The packaging, the box, very nicely done though, and they have extensive booklets that come with each one, which is was a big selling point for those sets that are expertly annotated and talking about the sessions or the history of the artist, or many pages and lots of outtake photos and stuff like that. So
Okay.
anyway, the first two, that Indestructible and what were the two we looked at? Oh, Night in Tunisia, as I said, were Wayne Shorter with Lee Morgan, and their sound is tremendous. This one, Free for All, is Wayne Shorter with Freddie Hubbard, and this particular Blakey album is really highly regarded from Bluenote enthusiasts because of the high energy involved, especially the title track. It just takes off from the first note and doesn't quit. So
See,
it's a really amazing album. That the whole lineup is amazing. It's Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, Curtis Fuller on trombone, Wayne Shorter tenor, Cedar Walton on piano, who was a great compliment to this group, Reggie Workman on bass, and Art Blakey, of course, on drums. So if you're looking for some energy, this is the Art Blakey album to get.
you're learning a lot more on this than you ever learn on any of my videos, because he knows his shit. I make shit up. So if you believe all the shit of jazz shit that I've been posting,
Don't believe it.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we were college roommates. He knows it. Jazz shit boys.
Well, I know Bluenote. There was like a big push with. I was involved in another bulletin board, several in the late 90s and early 2000s, before Facebook and all that stuff. There was like first Bluenote, actually themselves, the company had a message board, and a lot of people were in on that. And of course, the discussions were exclusively about Bluenote. So that was back and forth. I learned a whole bunch then, and then they shut it down, and then there was a series of other bulletin board services online that a lot of those same people kind of migrated to, and so I sort of got to know a lot of these people, and you know, everyone's like really into Bluenote. So, and then when the Mosaic thing, you know, and that was all part of the discussion. So
It's like listen to fucking Elizabeth Warren.
yeah.
like,
So
talk.
Bluenote, you know, Bluenote was it, and I mean, I've liked Bluenote for years, but I really learned a lot in those later decades.
This is my jazz shit muse friend, you know? After college, we backpacked around Europe together and then separate, and then he goes and works for like 2 months or whatever at the Montreux Jazz Festival.
Well, a couple of weeks.
Okay, it seemed like months. Why am I the only one drinking here?
I don't know.
Are you shooting like smack back there?
No, I should have had something.
His
but,
right arm is off camera. I think he's like shooting
So
up.
it's all good.
Yeah, okay.
Continuing, this whole Wayne and Lee Morgan thing, which is not that, was also very good. And there's like two fantastic Lee Morgan albums, which are not here, The Gigolo and Search for the New Land, that I believe they're both Lee and Wayne, and you can.
I have to
believe
seek them
those,
out.
I think those are on, you know, Tone Music Master Poet albums or
Now,
something.
we had a conversation which a lot of you have had here about the whole bullshit of paying a shitload of money for records. Now, I was gonna say there's two ways of looking at it, but there's more than two ways. This shit's expensive. Music, it's expensive.
I know.
Music Matters go for like $49 to $59. Yet, when the things get low or almost out of print or on their site, they're about $75 a pop. $75 for a record. Okay. You can hate it. I get it. That whole thing. But the deal is, go to Chris in the Man Cave. Look at. I mean, he finagles his way to get these. I don't know how he gets these pressings, but original pressing, especially mono, but even the stereo, original Bluenote pressing.
Cheers.
Oh, is that grape juice?
No.
Is that? Oh, it's wine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. That's the prayer over the wine. Okay. There's no prayer over the martinis.
Okay.
But see, I'm a senior citizen now. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, the price. Oh, you can pay for originals and all the power to you. These are records, and as I said before, I think we're on the last hurrah of a lot of these labels actually going to the original analog sources. That's gonna die very soon. Okay, continue, Mr. Brooks.
Okay. Still on Wayne Shorter. Now there's a couple of Wayne Shorter albums here. And I'm not as familiar with these albums as some of his other albums, but they're both
Make it up. Just
good.
make it up.
I guarantee it.
Oh.
Etc.
That's
Here.
That's a tone poet.
Yeah, whatever it is. It's a record, and it's etc. It's got Wayne Shorter. It's a quartet, so it's like a lot of Wayne. Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Cecil McBee is an incredible bass player, still around. He plays with a band called the Cookers, which is an all-star jazz quartet of
Wayne's World. Wayne's World.
great musicians. And if you get a chance to see the Cookers, I highly recommend that.
What are the Cookers? Or like a?
And here's a drummer on here. Oh, Joe Chambers is very good too.
So this is a tone poet. The tone poet emulate the Music Matters because Joe Harley, who does the tone poets for music for Bluenote for Don Was, is one of the partners in Music Matters, and it gets very incestuous and very complicated,
Yeah. So anyway.
etc.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's a great album. I'm not as familiar with that as others, but I can't imagine that it's not a great album. As is Adam's Apple. Also Wayne with Herbie, Reggie Workman on bass, and Joe Chambers. So essentially the same band with a different bass player as etc.
Herbie Hancock, yeah.
Yeah, Herbie's all over the place. You know, all sorts of albums.
Yeah,
As we discussed before, all these musicians played on each other's albums. So, you know, Herbie plays with Wayne Shorter here, but then Wayne will play on Herbie's albums, and Freddie Hubbard will play on Wayne's albums, or Joe Henderson, and you know, it was just a group of like-minded musicians that all just like to play together, and Bluenote was the place that they were able to make that happen. So that's why there's so much amazing music on Bluenote. Yeah. So speaking of Herbie Hancock, this was his first solo album.
Okay, now just so I point this part out.
Okay.
This is a Bluenote 80. All analog. The covers are thinner, not as elaborate, but if you just want the music, these are great. They're all analog, having great
just
cuts.
want the music, yeah.
And mostly you should just want the music, but then there's collectors that
Yeah.
want the yin-yang of the glossy, fancy covers. Again, these Bluenotes are great. You can get them for about 21, 22 bucks tops on Amazon, or local record stores, 22, 23. But incredible record, right? Watermelon Man.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about a lineup that is all-star caliber. You got Dexter Gordon on tenor sax, Herbie Hancock one more time. Well, it's his album, but it's Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, Butch Warren, and Billy Higgins on drums.
Okay, I want Brooks, take a little, not a break here, but I want you to tell the audience what this represents.
Dexter Gordon after a song, or after a solo.
Brooks and I saw Dexter Gordon several times at the Keystone Corner in San Francisco. It was a jazz club in North Beach. And after he takes a solo, or after a song, or at the end of his show, he takes his sax. I don't have a sax here.
Yeah,
he
sort of
just
presents
holds
it, yeah.
He kind of presents it, like holds it up to the altar. It's fucking incredible.
Yeah, he was amazing.
So if you ever want to dress up like okay, this is my Halloween costume. I'm gonna walk around like this. People are gonna think I either have palsy or I'm Dexter Gordon. So it's something really good.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a couple Dexter here. But,
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's not part of one. So you can't show that.
That's not part of what?
That's not
This?
this record. Take that away.
Why?
Because
Okay.
that's not part of this thing.
It's not, okay, all right. With this, we're not there yet. We're not. Okay, we do have some Dexter Gordon here, as long as we're on that. We have Doing All Right, Horace Parlin, not as much of an all-star cast as far as name recognition, but of course they're all great anyway.
Very reasonably priced.
Nice cover.
Bluenote 80. So thinner covers, but great pressings.
Dexter in Manhattan, you know, probably on 59th Street in his, you know, the horse-drawn carriage there, Midtown Manhattan, looking dapper as usual. Then there's Go, another fantastic Dexter Gordon album. Sonny Clark on piano, who we happen to be listening to, and Butch Warren and Billy Higgins again. If you don't know Billy Higgins was everywhere in the 60s, 70s, and 80s on drums. It'd be hard to find a jazz album, particularly Bluenote and some others, that Billy Higgins was not playing drums on. He had the smallest drum set you've ever seen, but he knew what to do, and he was always smiling and having a great time.
See, a jazz set is usually a smaller set and cliche of a jazz set than a rock and roll set. Bass drum.
Oh, yeah.
I think bass drum's usually a 24-inch in rock and roll, 22-inch or less. But I remember Tony had a big bass. He had like a rock and roll set in a way.
Well, he's kind of a, yeah.
Can you speak anything about, can you talk about like these covers at all? Do you want to talk about or is that not your thing?
What about
Reed Miles, Francis Wolff, just, no?
Well, yeah, they all had a look. I mean, you know, if you're a collector, you know that's part of the appeal of Bluenote is the covers, because they were all designed, or pretty much all designed by, at least sort of in the heyday years, by Reed Miles, who didn't even like jazz, from what I understand, but he managed to capture, you know, the feeling of the music in just about every album.
Do you realize if Reed Miles married Miles Davis, one of them would be Miles Miles?
Yeah, and as Norman said,
Mazzy, come on.
as Massey said, pretty much all the photographs were by Francis Wolff, who was, as he said, one of the founders of Bluenote Records, but he loved the music and he wasn't even particularly a photographer, although you wouldn't know that by looking at the photos.
Great
'cause
stuff.
It's fantastic. There's lots of books out there that are just his photographs, so you can look those up, and either they're pictures of covers or they're outtakes from album sources and so forth. Got this other artist here, so probably somebody new that you may not be familiar with, but this guy was unbelievable. He's an organ player. His name is Larry Young, and this is one of his finest Blue Note albums by far, because not only does it have Woody Shaw on trumpet, Joe Henderson on sax, but also Elvin Jones from John Coltrane's band and so forth. And it's just a fantastic album. He was a unique organ player, not really typical of what you think of when you think of organ combos, sort of that funky, greasy sound. He got to be more abstract. Yeah, I mean, there's that whole
grease thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it was called. You know, there's organ trios that used to travel around the East Coast.
Like greasy, like the Grease Band with Joe. I don't understand.
I don't know. Well, it was just the term that was,
Mazzy learned something every day from
funky,
Brooks. Greasy.
Yeah, like organ trios. That's kind of how they were referred to. That there's that classic.
You have to grease the organ.
It's usually like an organ player, probably a guitar player, and a drummer. It'd be like a trio like that, and because the organ player can play bass with their foot, the pedals on the organ.
Do they squeak if you don't grease them? Okay. Shut up, Mazzy. Whatever. Every time he says grease, I'm going to take a swig.
All right. But anyway, Larry Young is amazing. And
great record.
And
this is an MMJ record.
Yeah. And here's another earlier one. It's a little more standard than that Unity album, but it's also good. It's actually a Grant Green album, but it features Larry Young on organ and Bobby Hutcherson, the famous, fantastic Bobby Hutcherson on vibes.
Vibraphone.
From the Bay Area, passed away unfortunately a few years ago.
We used to see him too.
Yeah.
A lot in the Bay Area.
Oh, no, he played at Keystone all the time.
Yeah.
And Elvin Jones, One More Time. And then the cover is a photograph of the corner of Grant and Green Street in San Francisco and North Beach.
North Beach, Grant Green, right off of Columbus, in the Italian area. We used to go, there's a Savoy Tivoli up there, there's that blues clubs up there. There's a bar right here. I mean, this is, Jim Marshall took this photograph.
Oh,
too.
did he?
This is a Jim Marshall photograph.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is a MMJ, and again, as I said, I don't really go for these usually, but this is a 2 LP, 45 RPM version. But it's still, this is a great record. And also, as you know that I've spoken about here, I'm being a native San Franciscan, third generation, anything to do with San Francisco, I need to get that cover of the Monk with the cable car.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't have that.
It's like live at the Basin Street.
I need to get that cover. There's Miles Davis, the Black Hawk Club. I mean, there's a lot of jazz things from San Francisco.
Like Cannonball Adderley.
Cannonball Adderley, Cal Jader, all that. I mean, that's later, obviously, but
not really.
And there's also, what's the picture? I don't know if it's a Blue Note. They're sitting on the steps, and it's like in the Fillmore district of a Victorian in San Francisco, a jazz album cover, and the band's sitting on these steps. Unless it's a blues album, but I think it's a jazz album.
I don't know. It doesn't ring a bell.
See, anything to do with San Francisco, I eat up.
Doesn't ring a bell. Well,
that's my heart in
there's
San
Van
Francisco,
Morrison, St. Dominic's.
St. Dominic's Brew, that's off of, between Fillmore and Isidero, and at St. Dominic's.
Yeah, right.
So.
Steiner, I guess, right? Steiner and Bush.
It's somewhere in there,
Now I've lost my train of thought. You threw me off.
But that's okay, because we're improvising.
Yeah.
Jazz improvises.
Jazz.
You improvise with
jazz.
I
know what I want to say. This is a Grant Green album, but it does feature Larry Young. And back to the Mosaic thing, Mosaic put out a box 15 or 20 years ago, the complete Blue Note Larry Young sessions. And that Grant Green album was included in there, as well as a few other albums that Larry and Grant did together. So that's how much they thought of Larry Young at the time. Larry Young also went on to do a little more electric stuff, electronics and stuff, and he was on sort of a groundbreaking album with Carlos Santana and John McLaughlin. They only did the one album together, but Larry Young was keyboards on that, and the textures that he throws into that album are just unbelievable. It really makes.
Is that before or after Diva Dip?
No, that was during. Yeah,
During Diva Dip.
Love, Devotion, and Surrender. Yeah.
Google Diva Dip.
Yeah, he was
Carlos
David.
Santana.
Yeah, he was David Dip, and McLaughlin was
Flamadip.
Mahavishnu. John.
Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu and Diva Dip.
Anyway, they did it. It's an interesting album. It's really good. It's high energy. You know, it's in the vein of
Fusion, right?
Of Mahavishnu Orchestra. Yeah, it's like that. And then Billy Cobham is on it and stuff. But kind of for me, Larry Young really kind of makes the difference on that from being a standard, fusion guitar freak out kind of.
I learned so much from this guy. I mean, you could see. We
Grant
were
Green.
college roommates for 3.5 years.
There's
In
another
an
Grant
apartment in
Green.
San Francisco. I learned so much about jazz, and then working in the record stores.
Here's another Grant Green album. I've never heard it.
Okay.
It's his first solo
Because it's a
album.
fucking
It's his
like
first
cheapo
album.
ass BN80. It's a Bluenote 80.
I'm sure
so
it's
not
great.
glossy
I'm
cover.
sure it's great.
No, it is good.
I'm sure it's great.
I've heard it.
I like Grant Green. For me, I can't listen to a ton of Grant Green all at once because he gets kind of repetitive, and he plays single notes. He doesn't play chords, so that gets kind of weird sometimes. But
Now, okay, but let's talk about like guitar players.
yeah,
Interesting guitar player too, who's got an interesting. Like I know he's not part of this whole thing, but we can switch and talk about Wes Montgomery. He has a certain style.
yes. Oh, of course he does.
They all
yeah.
have certain styles.
Oh,
Okay.
everyone's got
We're not going to
style.
talk about Wes
And I'm
Montgomery.
not saying
'cause
Grant Green doesn't have a style, but for me, a lot
he
of
doesn't
them
play
he
chords
gets-
enough, you know. But,
Well, it's you'll know when you hear.
like that's like people putting down Johnny Marr because he plays chords instead of leads.
Ooh, yeah,
he
I like
plays
that, though.
chord leads.
He does.
I love Johnny Marr. We both like. See, we're both Smiths fans.
He never recorded for Bluenote though. I think we're still working
You know,
on. I think we still have some
Brooks,
decks. We got one more Dexter Gordon.
Brooks. Some girls are
Clubhouse.
bigger than others.
Yeah.
Some girls are bigger than others' mothers. Okay.
Clubhouse.
This
album
is a tone poet.
and this album
Never existed.
never existed until I
Tone
think the
poet.
late '70s. No, it came out as part of the LT series that Blue Note reissued when they were like throwing stuff out there in the '70s, and it was a session that hadn't been released traditionally on Blue Note, and then it came out here. But once again, great lineup. You got Freddie Hubbard, you got Billy Higgins, you got Barry Harris on piano.
So this is not a true 40s, 50s. This is like a Frankenstein album,
60s.
right?
It's a '60s. No. I
No?
mean, it was a session. It's a real session. It just wasn't released until it just sat in the vaults because somebody decided they weren't going to release it for whatever reason. So it sat there for 10 years or so, and finally came out on this weird label that Blue Note was putting stuff out on with these ugly covers. But now it's got a nice cover and
You put a nice
It's a good
cover
album.
on it.
it's
You
a
put
good album
great
too.
music on it. You remaster it, and you can charge $35 for it.
What else we got here? Oh, we got some Sam Rivers. Now,
Tone poet. We're
This is
tone poet.
Okay, Sam Rivers was a great sax player. Did all sorts of stuff. He played outside music, like avant-garde.
Outside, not in a studio?
He played loft music. He was big on the loft scene in the 70s and 80s in New York. He did orchestras. He did small group things. He did 3 albums for Blue Note. All of them are really excellent, and they're somewhere between straight ahead jazz and getting a little bit out there, but it's all very accessible. Again, Mosaic did complete Sam Rivers Blue Note Sessions box, which I have, of course. And
Of course you do.
of course I
Here's
do.
everything. It's on compact disc.
Yeah, it's on
So
CD. It
It's
is on
it's on
CD.
those little like silver
It
things.
has little blunt round silver things.
Recorded in 1965 by Rudy Van Gelder.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would make sense. Well, the Rudy Van Gelder in
Yeah,
65.
totally.
But anyway, all the Sam Rivers, I think, are probably mid-60s. But Sam Rivers is a very interesting sax player, and if you feel like exploring his work, there's a lot of stuff out there and
Alfred
a
Lyons,
lot of
too.
variation of stuff. And how are we doing on time, Morty?
We're keep going. Look at all those records there.
I know, but
Doesn't matter.
Okay,
These
all
people, like,
Yeah.
you can put it on pause. You can go take a shit. You can come back and listen to jazz shit.
Yeah, we got some. Oh, Thad Jones. Here we go. Okay.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Thad Jones.
I love that cover.
It's a great album. This is Thad Jones did also, I think, two or three albums on Blue Note. Again, there's a Mosaic box that has the complete Thad Jones Blue Note albums in
You
it.
can tell this guy's a Mosaic freak. He just like has all his.
Well, Mosaic with the Blue Note stuff because you could get all these
Zippity doo dah,
because you could
zippity
get all the
day.
great Blue Note albums all in one box
I
with
get
the
it.
great annotation and the photographs, and it's all together. And
I get it. I get
Yeah,
it.
it's great. You know, you don't get the covers. That's the downside of the Mosaic sets. But
You get booklets and you get all
you
kinds
get
of
booklets and all sorts
stuff.
of stuff. But Thad Jones is really interesting. Thad Jones is one of the three Jones brothers, Elvin Jones and Hank Jones.
And Tom Jones.
No.
It's not unusual.
Yeah.
That joke didn't work the first time, so you know, hey, I'm here all night.
Yeah.
Whatever. Take a swig.
So yeah, Thad Jones, he's great. He also led the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra that played every Monday night at the Village Vanguard in New York for a decade or two. He left for unknown reasons, actually, and Mel Lewis kept the thing going, and it still goes to this day on Monday nights with an orchestra. It's not Thad Jones Mel Lewis, it's called the Village Vanguard Orchestra, but it carries on the tradition of Monday night big bands in New York City.
What a great, great cover.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Look
There
at
you
that
go.
cover.
Like Times Square or something,
that-
probably,
Well, no.
in the 60s.
Oh yeah, it might be Showboat
Yeah,
Theaters.
probably in the 60s, probably
Yeah.
Times Square.
Wow.
Anyway, so Thad Jones, interesting trumpet player. I don't know if he gets enough credit for it. It's understated, but he picks interesting ways of playing solos and so forth.
Okay.
Okay. We got some.
Benny Hill time.
No, we don't.
Benny Hill.
No.
Hello,
no.
mate.
It's not Benny Hill.
I'm Benny Hill time.
It's
Oh.
Andrew
Oh,
Hill.
Andrew Hill. Sorry.
Andrew Hill.
Oh, this is heavy.
Yeah.
You know why?
There's two records.
It's 245
Oh, it's
RPMs.
245. Wow.
Again,
Oh,
I'm not
really?
a fan, but
You have to listen to that on 45s. Wow.
yeah, it's kind of like Minnie Mouse.
But you kind of want to just listen to the whole thing all the way
I get
through.
it. You know, I would rather have
Andrew
this.
Hill, because
You know,
he's,
audiophiles really like the 45 RPM or
I'm sure it
open.
sounds delicious,
great.
but you know,
It sounds delicious. It sounds chocolatey, as Joseph would say, chocolatey.
but you have to get up every 10 minutes and turn it
Well,
over.
You know, what are you, old man?
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I like the 33s better,
Mm-hmm.
even though they get a sound. But by the time I'm listening to music, it's not that different. But you audiophiles will say differently, and I get it. You're right. But
Andrew Hill, prolific Bluenote artist, and again, not a top name as far as commercial music, but he was very important in the Bluenote family, and particularly in the 60s, and I think probably somewhat into the 70s. This particular album has Bobby Hutcherson on vibes, and Elvin Jones again on drums.
Elvin Jones, a
And he's all over
powerhouse.
the- he's all over the place. You know, everyone thinks
Powerhouse.
People think of him just as John Coltrane's drummer, but he was way beyond that. I mean,
Coltrane.
that was great, but that was only, a few years in the mid-60s.
So, do you know why Coltrane only did one record for Blue Note? Was it just a contractual thing he signed for Impulse?
I don't know, actually.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know.
Help us out.
I'm sure there's a
Write
reason.
a comment. It's just curious. 'cause
Google
that-
it. There's probably a reason.
the googly would
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Maybe Impulse wouldn't allow him to do anymore. Maybe he had a contract with Impulse.
But then-
he did a lot of the
Then
work
Van
on Impulse.
Gelder worked for both. I mean, he worked for everybody.
Yeah,
For
but
Verve
maybe
and-
he had a different contract.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, as many people do. Anyway, Andrew Hill, important piano player. He passed away maybe 10 years ago,
There's
10,
another-
12 years ago.
isn't there another-
Yeah, there's another one. And another person worth looking into. He's also played on other people's albums. And then there's this album, which is
Smart
considered
guy.
his classic Blue Note album, Point of Departure, with Kenny Dorham on trumpet, Eric Dolphy on alto sax and probably clarinet, Joe Henderson on tenor sax, Richard Davis, and Tony Williams on drums. So
Tony,
it doesn't
baby.
get much better than this lineup. Great cover, great album. Get it.
Now, the good thing about this is a MMJ, Music Masters Jazz. This came out as a Blue Note 80 recently. So you can get it, for 20,
okay.
$22, whatever. So it's a little avant-garde, no?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's because
So-
you got your Dolphys in there.
Oh,
that's gonna do
Dolphy.
it.
Dolphy is like
But
he's like the Captain Beefheart of jazz.
yeah,
No, not really.
but he was
He's kinda out there.
But yeah, he's definitely
Yeah,
out there.
see?
But it works,
Mazzy
especially with this
knows
lineup.
shit.
It keeps
I know
it.
jazz shit.
He's not as out there as he might be on his own, because you've got like Kenny Dorham, who's pretty straightforward. He doesn't get out there on trumpet, and you got Joe Henderson, who he's one of those inside-outside type of tenor players who
What does that
can.
mean? What is?
That's
I don't understand. Inside outside.
Inside outside. It's a jazz term. Then there's a handful of probably more than a handful of sax players who play that way. Joe Henderson is one.
Sounds like a baseball term.
George Adams, who played with Mingus and then had his own group with Don Poland. He played that way, and I'm sure there's lots of others. But what it means is they can play a tune pretty straightforward, and it's like, oh, okay, I get that tune. And then they'll go into a solo, and they'll just like blast off into the stratosphere and go crazy. And then the next thing you know, they're back doing kind of really sort of straight ahead. So it's just a way to change the energy of the tune in a really interesting way. And those kind of sax players are really amazing. So I think Mazzy's going to put this album on.
Yeah, it'll be on the background. So
Yeah, it'll be on the background, so I don't know if you'll hear it. But so that's the Joe Henderson, and we can go off on another tangent with Joe Henderson, who's also a giant of Bluenote as well as.
Wow, this is fucking great.
Do we have Joe Henderson here? Yeah, we must have something. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Here's. This isn't even opened yet. This is one of many excellent Joe Henderson albums on Bluenote. Inner Urge with McCoy Tyner of John Coltrane fame, Bob Cranshaw bass, and again Elvin Jones. Fantastic album. Anything you can get on Bluenote by Joe Henderson, do not hesitate. He's one of the best. He wasn't necessarily as famous as some of the other players, but if you love tenor sax, I would get anything of his on Bluenote, and even some of the other stuff later on. And he had some really good albums on Milestone before. I don't know, actually not before Bluenote. Somewhere in the same period of time, the '60s, I guess. And the '70s, he was still on Milestone. He did stuff he was getting a little more electronic stuff and commercial type things. But there was actually a box set of Joe Henderson's complete Milestone. It has a lot of interesting stuff on it. It's different than the Bluenote, but it's good in its own way. So,
Okay.
I think we're about there.
Okay, let's kind of close it out now. How ended?
Yeah, do you have somebody you want to?
Oh, no more fucking cornbread. No fucking cornbread. There are 365 vinyl community posts on cornbread on Tone Poet. Great album though, but no more tone bread. Cornbread. Tone bread. Okay.
Yeah. What Mazzy said. Well, you got a lot of Grant Green here. Wow. All right.
Okay.
Some Johnny Griffins. There's some better Johnny Griffins too. Probably aren't
Okay.
there? Here's an interesting. Actually, this is not. It's kind of Bluenote, but not really.
No,
but it's an interesting album though. I got it. I have it.
Yeah. It was Solid State that was picked up
Yeah, right.
by
And they
Liberty,
released it.
and that was picked up
And
by...
I have a Bluenote issue on CD.
We're moving on.
I'm still in the CD world because I don't have room for albums or to set up a
That's okay.
turntable, and I live in a small condo in San Francisco. So.
He's in an overpriced San Francisco condo.
Yeah,
I
which
feel
I'm
sorry
okay with
for
that.
him.
Yeah.
Hayes Valley. He owns his fucking condo. Give me a break. He owns property in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I don't own property in San Francisco anymore.
Yeah.
I had to sell my house to buy a house in...
Jackie Mclean, another staple of the Bluenote with a great cover. Nice, enlarged typewriter type.
Font.
Yeah, typewriter font. This album's good. Jackie Mclean is usually good. He's always playing with the best people in Bluenote, and happens to be one of them.
It's the
Let's
best.
see, Clifford Jarvis. Who's on drums here? I don't know.
Clifford
I guess
Jarvis,
Clifford Jarvis
Bob
on drums.
Cranshaw, Larry Willis, and
Willis.
Jackie
So-
McLean.
so it's
Now,
not-
Jackie is a guy, not a woman.
Yeah. Oh
Just so
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's
I don't
right.
know.
Well, and Tina
Some
Brooks is a guy too.
Tina Brooks
There's a
is
Tina
a
Brooks
man.
album. Yeah.
A lot of these jazz artists with girl names.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Well, Jackie can go the way. Tina? I don't know any guys named Tina.
Let's do one more, and then we'll.
Okay, one more.
Here's one that's not open. This
We'll
is
open it.
Donald Byrd. Donald Byrd. A lot of people know Donald Byrd from the '70s. The Blackbirds.
The Blackbirds, right.
And they're very commercial, and they had a beat, and they had a danceable, and
This is a great
and
cover.
he was very successful with it, so you can't fault him for that. And I'm sure it was great music. It didn't appeal to me,
A
but
jazz artist making money.
yeah.
I mean,
So
come on,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. So what the hell? But he had a whole string of Bluenote albums in the '60s that are right everything you want to hear in a Bluenote album. You've got your Donald Byrd on trumpet, Pepper Adams on baritone sax, Duke Pearson on piano, who was a staple at Bluenote in arranging and playing piano and stuff. Philly Joe Jones on drums. So I'm actually not as familiar with this album as some of his others, but this is great. There's a fantastic double live album at the, I believe, Half Note. That if you find that somewhere, I don't know what the availability is of that at the moment, but it's an incredible live album. You feel like you're sitting right in the front row at this club, and it's really good.
So pack up all your cares and woes. Bye bye Blackbird. So I want to thank Brooks from the bottom of my heart for joining me on this what is it?
Chewy.
Jazzy jazz shit boys take on MMJ, Tone Poet, and Bluenote 80, kind of audiophile jazz to a point. You know, get your wallets and your credit cards out, get a second job, whatever it takes. You know, these analog records aren't going to last long. They're on the resale. It's crazy. For instance, one of them, in fact, okay, excuse my crotch here. This record, you all know this record. We're not going to talk about it because you know it.
Yeah.
There's a million versions of this. You know, original, stereo, 70s, classic records issued it. It's out of print everywhere except for like cheapo European digital source records. These go for like over $100, $120 now because they're out of print, which is a shame. This is a great record, but I want to end up with a Coltrane record because it's the only Coltrane record on Bluenote. Was he on other records though? I don't know. No, but I want to end with this. So if you find this, beg, borrow, and steal for this record. You should have it anyway.
Yeah,
I know it's kind
have it.
of one way or another. Buy a fucking CD.
Yeah, buy a CD.
Buy a CD.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
You can buy a CD.
Well, it's one of those all-time classic albums.
It's a great
Everybody
record.
has,
I mean,
yeah.
Philly Joe Jones, Paul Chambers, Kenny Drew, Coltrane, obviously Curtis Fuller, and Lee Morgan.
Lee Morgan, there you go.
I mean,
it doesn't
this-
get any better
this-
than Lee Morgan and
It
Curtis
doesn't
Fuller.
get any better.
Curtis Fuller is another artist that is underrated and is a trombone player and played in a lot of, from Art Blakey to this album and everything else, and his tone fits perfectly between the trumpet and the sax, and it adds to that whole frontline beautiful tone.
So I want to thank you all for watching again. Thanks Brooks from visiting from San Francisco and his jazz expertise. I'm in awe of his knowledge of jazz. I really am. Mazzy loves
Thank
you.
you.
You're welcome, Brooks. 45 years we
Thank
know
you,
each
Mazzy.
other.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, love you. Watch it. Please comment. You know, the fucking dick who put thumbs down on the last one, get out of here. Take care. Bye.